I didn't like skiing when I was a kid. Many people think I just have to trust him, but he also has to trust me. If we criticize the classification too much, that means like we criticize all the parasport. My wish is to live there and feel I'm happy.
Welcome to Hidden Champions. My name is Dani Aravich, two-time U.S. Paralympian, and I'm excited to bring you this podcast alongside FIS, where we talk to the best athletes you've never heard of ahead of the Milan Paralympic Games. Make sure you subscribe anywhere you get your podcast so you can hear more exciting episodes with plenty of para-athletes. Today, we are talking to one of the best visually impaired cross-country skiers in the world, four-time, soon-to-be five-time Paralympian, eight-time medalist, Zebastian Modin. Hello, Zebastian.
Hi, Dani. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on. We're excited to have you. And we just want to learn more about you, your athletic journey, and what makes you so damn good at cross-country skiing. Because you're pretty good at it. I mean, you got third place today at the World Cup.
Yeah. I was. I don't say I'm good at it, but I was happy today. Yeah.
Well, I think third place is pretty darn good. Zebastian, where are we right now? Also.
Yeah, we are in Finstrau, Germany, east of Germany, on our World Cup circuit, Nordic.
Awesome. Yes, we just got to Germany. We have Poland coming up, and then the big dance of the Paralympic Games starting March 7th. And Zebastian, you have been one of the strongest athletes in the visually impaired men's category for many years now, starting all the way back in 2010 in Vancouver. So can you tell me a bit more about what got you into cross-country skiing and what led you to your first Paralympics?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Well, I think when I grew up as a kid, I really like sports, like all kind of sports, but mostly, like football and hockey and those things. And I was able to do it like somehow, but then my sight decreased even more, like when I was 10, 11, 12. So it was like impossible to do it even, at school and so. So I tried other sports and I tried a couple, and somewhere I think I tried swimming, or I tried swimming, and then I understood like, I thought I like to, to practice and like become tired and, this endurance thing. So I think that was good for me at that time. I needed it. So, and then some friends of my family, they asked me to try cross-country skiing because their sons, they were some years older than me, and they were very good at it. So, I mean, they were like a skiing family. So they encouraged me to try, and I think I liked it quite directly. So I didn't like skiing when I was a kid. I liked all other types of sports, but I fell in love with it, I think, quite directly, like doing it.
Yeah. And were you able to take things from playing those other sports? Because I was similar, that I played a bunch of different sports, particularly ball sports. So I played basketball, soccer, as you say, football, or all these other things. Were you able to take any of those skills from those sports into cross-country skiing?
Yeah, because it was same for me on the ball sports. I didn't know that you said it in English in that way. I think so, because, I think I, learned, I think it's maybe even more important as a para kid to, get to learn the patterns and the body language and, to somehow control your body and work with your body. So I think that helped me a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And how did you then rev up your training to go from someone who started in their early teens of this new sport of cross-country skiing to get to your first Paralympics in 2010?
Yeah, I don't know. I just, as I said, fell in love quite directly. And I think, I just wanted to do it all the time. Only think about skiing, because my friends, they were sporty. So I think I was very happy that I finally found something, because when we were there, like, 11, 12 years, and my sight decreased even more. And they started, to practice harder, train more. And I did the opposite. So I think I was very happy that I finally found something that I like fell in love with. And so I think I trained quite a lot, all types of endurance and strength that I tried to learn and, ask and read and listen. And so I got very interested. So maybe that was, I had the base of all the other sports, and then I, became very interested in skiing in particular.
Yeah. And I know you really wanted to ski against your friends who didn't have disabilities or visual impairments. And were you able to keep up with them as a kid when you were skiing against them?
Some. Not really all of them, but yeah.
I feel like as a para-athlete too, it's so fun when you can beat people who don't have disabilities, because it also helps you earn their respect when you're skiing faster than them and they don't have any sort of impairment. So I find that that's always fun to enter an able-bodied competition if it's ever possible, just to kind of see how you do against the rest of the field there. So do you ever still get to enter any competitions against non-para athletes?
Yes, sometimes. Not very often last year's though, but sometimes. But I think like when I was at the high school, a skiing program, I think I got that, that thing almost every day in training. So that was very, very good for me, to always have that pursuit.
Well, you were only 15 years old when you won your first Paralympic medal.
Yeah, I was going to turn 16. So it was a very, I did just some World Cup that year, some World Cups, and, I was far away. And also in Vancouver as well. But then the sprint came the last day. And I think I was my body was very good that day in relation to my capacity. So it was a very lucky day, I would say.
A very lucky day.
Yeah.
Clearly took a lot of hard work though. And I mean, to be so young, what did it feel like to receive that Paralympic medal and to know that you were among, few people in this world who get to say that they are Paralympic medalists?
I think actually I didn't realize it, or I didn't.
How big it was?
No, I didn't understand it. No, because I was also very young and new to the parasport, so I think I didn't understand. And also, you have to remember that now it's 16 years later, and the parasport has grown also quite a lot. So it's a medal now is, I would say, the average of a medal now is bigger than the average of a medal back then, even though it was for me, very big, but I think you understand.
Yeah, the competition's just gotten more and more intense.
Yeah, and also everything, and everything around it as well.
Yeah, I feel like you're like the LeBron James of Nordic skiing in the visual impairment category, because you've been doing it for so long and had so much success. So you've really seen the arc of the sports get more competitive and also the para movement grow. And what do you think is contributing to the level of competition? Like we were just talking about before we started this podcast, even how your nation has more athletes coming out and more athletes competing. The field I compete in is growing quite a bit. What do you think is contributing to all this?
Yeah, we also talked about, you asked who has been your biggest opponent through the years. And I said, I think if you ask all the visually impaired cross-country skiers, from the last 20 years, their biggest opponent then is Brian McKeever.
Brian McKeever.
Yeah. I know he has reached World Cup points in the able-bodied FIS World Cup, and we actually talked about this in Canmore on the last World Cup, because he's now retired, but he's a trainer now for the Canadian para team. So he said that when he got into this sport in 2001, because he was a junior and then he started to lose his sight. So, he said he started in 2001 because and I think all of us has benefited from him. As we said before we started recording that, even though we always want things to have happened faster, and we would wish to have to be more forward than we are. I think he's the biggest reason why we are here. because I mean he has been so strong in the able-bodied, and he's been in the para. So I think all categories has seen, you know, every athlete have seen like what's possible, and like everyone has unconsciously been chasing him.
Chasing him. Fastest Nordic skier.
Yeah, but I think so. So he has been, I think, someone who is, you know, he's the reason why the level had not been the same if he had not been.
Yeah,
I'm quite sure about that.
We owe a lot to Brian McKeever.
Yeah.
We're huge fans of Brian McKeever.
Yeah, we are. We should be very thankful for him. So, yeah.
How do you think the attention on the Paralympics has changed? You know, we talk about how the sport and the competition is getting more intense and more serious, but how has media attention coverage changed in your, you know, almost now 16 years of seeing Paralympic Games?
I think it's changed a lot, actually. I think the change really started, I think, around, you know, Vancouver, London, Sochi, somewhere, at least in Sweden. But I also think it's connected to what you said, like the competitions are getting more intense. I mean, people want to see good sport, even though if it's athletes in a wheelchair or one arm or VI or whatever. I mean, if it's athletics or Nordic skiing or sled para hockey.
Yeah,
I think people who are used to watch sport, they can see if this is good sport, even though it's, you know, they've never seen para hockey before. They say, oh, these guys are strong. These guys are, you know, crazy. But so I think that is why, you know, the level of sport is getting higher.
I agree. I think too that for so long people have had a idea in their head of what athletic looks like. And it was typically a able-bodied man who, you know, is incredibly, you could see the muscles bulging off them, or they're the fastest man in the world running the 100-meter dash. But as our world shifts and people see people who don't look like them or people who do things differently than them, they can see, oh, wow, like people can be athletic. It just might not look the way I thought it did. It doesn't have to fit this mold of what people historically viewed athleticism as. And it can be that athlete in a wheelchair or the athlete who uses a guide. And athleticism can come in many different forms too.
Yeah, but that's also because athletes, you know, all over the world have shown that it's possible.
Yep.
Because if no one shows it, it's difficult to just, you know, imagine.
Do you find that in Sweden, is there good momentum to try to grow parasport? And are there more kids with disabilities in Sweden? You know, now they have role models like you to see, oh, I could make it to the Paralympics someday too. Yeah,
I hope it's, the climate is getting better. So, but I'm not sure, but I think, and also around the Paralympic Games. So every second year, I think the opportunity is, of course, better because
you have been training for many years now. How would you, for someone who doesn't know anything about paracross country skiing, how would you describe your training? And do you find your training to be pretty similar to what those on the able-bodied circuit are doing?
Yeah, I think because I have many friends who are on the able-bodied circuit or have been, or, you know, I've been studying with many of them. So I think I know quite what they do. And I think they do not everything similar, but still there are also many things that are similar. And I would say I train quite, you know, the same. I'm also, I'm not a biathlete. I'm not a, you know, I'm not a marathon ski classics or, you know, so I think I do it quite my way. Some things I maybe have to adapt, but compared to other cross country, but quite the same.
Yeah. I think when we break it down, like the similarities in training are very uncanny when you look at our able-bodied counterparts, and we're training often similar hours or in similar different ways and zones, and people have still this misconception that para athletes aren't as elite. And I think you're proving this, is that para athletes are very elite and deserve to be respected as so.
Yeah, I think that's a good example, that I think the hours are the same, but you have to, maybe not, I'm not the one who trains most, but I'm not the one who trains less.
Who trains the least.
Yeah.
So true.
But the thing is, if you take like Jonas Sundling and Frida Karlsson, they don't train exactly the same, because one won the 50K and won the sprint, but they have many similarities in their training.
Definitely. Yeah, very true. And what is it like for people who might not know, training with a guide? You use a guide for cross-country skiing to help you get around the course. What is it like training with a guide, and how often are you training with your guide?
Yeah, the guide is very important. Our collaboration is like the key if things are gonna turn out well. So we have to train quite a lot with each other, because we have to find our collaboration, as I said, and understand each other. So I have to understand what he says, what he means when he says something, but also he has to understand how I work, and he has to rely on me also, because so that he can be sure that I do what he says and all those things. So many people think I just have to trust him, but he also has to trust me. But we train, it differs, but we train once or twice a day together, like 5-6 times a week. But some like strength sessions and some other, I make maybe on the treadmill or some kind of indoor endurance once a week or so, which I do on my own. So that's also because I think it's, for me and him, also important that that we have time on our own in training.
Yeah. And what is the level of trust you have to have with a guide? Like, this person is your eyes on a course when you might be going down a fast downhill or not being able to obviously see around a tight corner. How much trust do you have to have with this guide?
Yeah, a lot, of course. But there's also, that's the thing. If you work hours together, if you work intensity sessions together, and also races like on top of it, you build up trust, because you are, you are put in various situations which you have to somehow manage. So that is a very important thing.
Definitely. Zebastian, we have a little something to show you from your guide.
Of course, this kind of season, I want Zebastian to be happy, to be glad, and to be able to do whatever he wants and achieve. And especially during the Paralympics, I want to see a happy Zebastian in the finish line. What that means, that is that he have done everything he can to compete and to push himself as hard as possible. What number that is, I don't know. But I want to see a happy Zebastian in the finish line.
Oh, what does it mean to have your guide? He doesn't just want you to succeed on the course. He wants you to be happy. A happy person too.
Yeah, that's maybe, it's easier for him. No, but yeah, of course, this sounds great.
Oh, well, I think that the relationship between guide and athlete is one of the most special relationships I've ever gotten to witness in sport. And it's just, I think it's really cool to see the trust you have in your guide and how close you two have become too. And, people who don't watch parasports very much, might be confused when they're watching the Paralympics and they see this extra person on the course and they'll see the numbers next to our names with a different classification. So what is your classification and how would you describe it?
Yeah, that's Yeah, now it's new letters in the beginning.
Gotcha.
NS1, yeah, which is, for those who know, it's close to B1, which is, the how to say it, the universal para classification system. But yeah, so as I said in the beginning, so I grew up with more sight and started to learn to read the normal letters. But then my sight, I had a surgery which didn't go as expected, so I lost all my sight on the left eye when I was 6 years old, and then I lost on the right eye when I was, as I said earlier, like 11 years. So which means that I have now almost nothing left, but I think it decreases a bit, like almost like year by year. But that means like I raised in a category where we have to wear black goggles. So all of us have totally black when we ski. Yeah, and we race against those who see more. But the tricky thing here is that we can then have we have 12% cutoff on our time. So which is a very good solution, I think. Yeah. Because then we can have all the visually impaired guys with 3 various classifications within the VI. We can race against each other. So I do appreciate this
system.
Yeah, the system. So I am in the lowest, which with like no sight.
Yeah. So NS1 is you must wear blackout goggles, no sight. NS2 is a bit more sight, and then NS3 is the most amount of sight. And some of those athletes don't even sometimes race with a guide, and it then will depend on your percent and the factor. And how would you explain the factor to someone who's never seen it?
The factor system works in a way that my clock is going on 88% speed compared to the NS2 on 97 and the NS3 on 100. So actually they have their pure skiing time as a result. But let's say I ski in 100 seconds, my result time is 88 seconds. And so my clock is going slower. So we can have split times out, throughout the course. And I do really like the system, which is a winter thing, actually, for Nordic and Alpine.
Nordic and Alpine are the 2 sports that use the factor system.
Yeah.
If you could clear up one common misconception about classification for mainstream sports fans who might be tuning in this winter, what would it be?
I don't know. Could you please?
I'm trying to think what Adam said last time, but I would personally say is like that classification isn't perfect. Like it's quantifying disability and it can be extremely challenging. So there needs to always be improvements to the process. Some people would say a higher classification maybe means they're less capable of XYZ, like something that might just be like a truth.
Yeah, but it could be like, as we don't have individual classifications, there is, a span within where every athlete is. 100%. So let's say you are an NS2 here. You could be NS 1.3 or 2.4.
Exactly.
And that's, that's like, but that's also part of the game, unfortunately. But so we could wish for more classes within the class, so to say. But we will. I don't think we will never.
We won't get anywhere.
No, exactly. We'll never go where everyone has their own.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's not enough people to make even more almost sub-classifications. Exactly. Whereas like in para-track and field, the sport I came from, there's just a lot more athletes globally competing. Exactly. So they get a lot more specific within each classification. Whereas in skiing, there's just less athletes who have access to winter sports, less athletes competing. And so we needed to create a system that would allow athletes with different visual impairments to all race together rather than you only race NS1s.
Exactly, because so this raises the level of the sport. So, that could be something, but I think we have to do it as good as possible, but I think it will never be perfect, but I think we just have to deal with that.
How is your relationship with classification and the way you view it changed from when you were 15 years old starting to now?
There's always been a little questioning sometimes, about some athletes and so, but I've tried to, not focus on that things, because also if we criticize the classification too much, that means like we criticize all the parasport.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we have to be very, we have to tell what we think, of course, but we can't, try to criticize every certain little thing, because I think that tends to, or I think that can, give us more problem in the future.
For sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. Is there ways you still see classification affecting the results?
It's a good question, because I try to not think in that way.
Fair.
But it's
better for your mental health.
Yeah, but of course, if someone is changing from sitting VI standing, it's mostly in the sitting in VI. You go from one class, as I said, if you are an NS 2.4 and you go up to 2.6, so you are an NS 3. Mm-hmm. And then you have 3% added on your time. Mm-hmm. I mean, of course, that can impact the result if you backtrace the result lists. But yeah, I think also we have to believe in that, every certain classification is done in the most fair way possible. I mean, classification methods, they've changed a lot, like from 20 years to now. So that is also why classifications can change, because the methods change and what's possible. 20, 30 years ago, you couldn't laser the eye. Now they can laser the eye, see how it moves. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's not like, 80s, 90s when athletes looked at the screen, like, can you see the laser? Yes or no? Okay.
It's constantly evolving, and, the medical field is getting so much stronger too. So there's new tests they can run and different diagnoses of these medical conditions too. So it's going to be a constantly evolving thing, classification.
Yeah, so therefore I think it's natural that some classifications change. Mm-hmm. With some athletes change in their classification.
Absolutely. And people's function, I think that's what's so confusing maybe to viewers or people who aren't in the parasport space, is some of these disabilities quite literally mean that their function can change as time changes.
Exactly. And the thing is, like, most of the times it decreases. Yeah. But yeah, it can also go the other way around.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's something we continually, need to invest in and have more people do research on, because it will just help make the system as best we can.
Yeah, it's an important topic. It's also sensitive, but I think we have to see it like from a constructive view, because it's easy to put too many opinions in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely, I think, in parasport, the topic that brings up probably the most controversy.
Yeah, for sure. Too much about it.
We won't think about classification. We're thinking about Milan for our last few minutes. This will be your 5th Paralympic Games. Yeah. And what are your hopes for Milan? What are your dreams for Milan? Are they, tied to your athletic results, or are they tied to how much pizza and pasta you're going to consume?
Well, I think there are more. Yeah, but I've also past 30 years, so I try to be more happy with the life of skiing, even though you want to reach good performances, but you have also I've also started to realize that maybe you don't know for how long this is gonna last. But still, of course, I think actually my wish is to live there and feel I'm happy. And that's a boring answer.
No, I think it's a great answer. Okay. It's what your guide said too.
Okay. Because, I want to feel that, I have made a good year of training, that I have given myself throughout the year and throughout the Paralympic week, the chances to perform. And if we go back to athletics, if you say, okay, I ran 100 meters in 9:57 at training. Okay, then you have good chances to perform well at the Olympics. But in Nordic skiing, there are so many factors, so it's very, very hard to say, because It's also what the others do. What are your skis like? What are their skis? What, everything. So that's actually my wish.
Beautiful. I love that. Well, you've already earned 8 Paralympic medals across your 4 Paralympic Games. So I'm very excited to watch you in Milan. And I think you two are just doing a lot for the sport. You serve as an athlete representative on our group for FIS Paracross Country. So you're really helping drive home the athlete voice as well and trying to make the sport better for the next generation. And so for however many more Paralympic Games you're going to go to, I'm very, very excited to watch you.
Okay, thank you so much. And you're at the head of that athlete that group, so we have to thank you as well.
Thank you so much, Zebastian. Zebastian Modin, the best athlete you've never heard of. Hidden Champions is a FIS original production by FIS, the International Ski and Snowboard Federation, in partnership with Maniac Studios.